welcome to 3 Count Commentaries. This is your host, MagMongoSlade. Today, we're going to talk about NXT Roadblock from March the 5th, 2023. Good show. Can't complain. I'll always enjoy NXT. Of course, there's that one molten boil in the middle of the show somewhere. We'll talk about that when we get there, however. But one of the things that I saw, I'm not going to actually talk too much about it, is that WWE's relationship with All Japan Pro Wrestling fell through. Apparently, WWE is no longer interested in All Japan, and that was the point of the whole Charlie Dempsey thing. Interesting. I know it's really becoming a big issue on the Puro sites. They were talking about this. Apparently, I don't know what they were trying to do. I didn't get too deep into it. I just saw that whatever partnership was supposed to be created between the two has fallen apart, and that's it. So the Charlie Dempsey thing was an experiment that apparently produced no results. But they did experiment with Charlie Dempsey on this show, and it was very good. But first, Lexis King welcomes us to NXT Roadblock. He actually does the cold open, which is interesting. I liked it. I liked that the NXT highlights certain characters to do the cold open. It's good. First match. The Asylum match, Dijak versus Joe Gacy. It's a cage with weapons, pinfall and submissions only. This match was typical WWE hardcore match where there's pretty much the same weapons you always see, plus a little bit of that old WWE silliness. The silliness part took me out of the match. I was like, oh my God, what's going on? The do not open box. It says do not open, and would you know, Dijak opened it, and a fist came, like a boxing glove, like the Joker or something like that, came right out of the thing and hit him in the nuts. And then he got sprayed with a fire extinguisher. I was like, this is very Looney Tunes. Joe Gacy ends up fighting, and he's still in a straitjacket. He gets tied up with tape. It was ridiculous. The big spot of the match, of course, is Dijak hitting a moonsault off the top of the cage onto Gacy. And no, it was not the finish. For the record. You do it, you're 300 pounds, well, probably 260. You do a moonsault at the top of the cage, and it's not the finish. Can you tell me where Dijak was trained, please? Where he spent most of his time? The Indies, right? And same thing with Joe Gacy, who's like another indie guy. Anyway, the match ends up with 2 feast your eyes. This is with Dijak winning the match. I hope this thing is over. I cannot stand any more Dijak. No more, please. Please, no more. Gacy hit a pretty nasty Uranagi in this match, but other than that, he's basically just a pincushion. He takes a bunch of bumps, he takes big moves, he gets hit with weapons, and that's pretty much it. You get nothing too special or nothing too grand out of a Joe Gacy match or feud or anything like that. I got a theory about these guys. We'll talk about it in a minute. Probably later, about, somebody pitched the idea or said to me, like, are there NXT lifers? And said that maybe Joe Gacy and Dijak are 2 of the guys who probably just never leave in NXT. But we'll talk about that in a second. We'll talk about that at the end. We'll talk about that. Well, we got a little bit more time. Let's get through this show first. So, Adriana Rizzo and Stax, they're giving Tony D'Angelo the hype. They're letting them know, hey, you're the boss, you can do this, blah, 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 blah. But Stax, he has something. He leaves, he comes back with Lusa Crucifino. I've said this guy's name in like 3 or 4 different ways. I think it's Crucifino. Whatever. Tony D'Angelo says he likes what he saw. He likes the fire. He likes that he's not scared to get his hands dirty. And he asks Luca Crucifino if he wanted to be in the family. Says he needs a consigliere. He got an underboss. I forgot what Rizzo does, but she's there. So he needs somebody else. And Luca Crucifino accepts it. He agrees to the deal. And he's now part of Tony D'Angelo's family as a consigliere. He's Tom Hagen all over. He's Tom Hagen, except for he might actually be Italian. But Luca Crucifino was great. He did a really good job having a match with, I think it was Dijak. He was tremendous. Later in the show, Stax and Crucifino go over and let Ilya Dragunov know that he will be seeing Tony D'Angelo at Stand and Deliver, and they were very serious about this. And Tony D'Angelo has says that he likes Tony D'Angelo's vision, but he sees things a little bit differently. So they're setting that thing up. It was an interesting thing. But before we get to the main event, Carmelo Hayes has security. He was still disgusted that Ilya Dragunov wouldn't just give him the match, especially since he already agreed to it. And then says last week Tony D'Angelo snapped his fingers and got rid of his security, but not this time. This time he's got hand-picked security. He says Tony D'Angelo is going to learn, just like the last person who jumped the line, that the NXT Championship is reserved for him. Main event of the evening, Tony D'Angelo versus Carmelo Hayes. The winner will be the number one contender for the NXT Championship at Stand and Deliver. The match was won by Tony D'Angelo. Excellent. This was really good. Tony D'Angelo is a very underrated wrestler. He needs to get his body together. You know, he's stocky. He looks like kind of a tough guy. You know, you kind of want to, I don't know if you want him to lean up or if you just want him to tighten up a little bit. But work on his physique a little bit. But other than that, the guy's great. You know, he's an amateur wrestler, so he's got pretty good grip. His throws are nice. You know, he got the character work down. Somebody says that there was like the 4 horsemen or the 4 pillars of NXT 2.0, and Tony D'Angelo was the only one of that group that has not been the NXT champion yet, and likely is going to end up being the one that gets it. I would imagine the 4 pillars would have been Braun Breaker, Tony D'Angelo, Carmelo Hayes, and maybe Ilya Dragunov, even though I don't think Dragunov would count. So, I don't know. I don't know what they meant. I didn't ask. But I was just like perusing social media and saw that. But in any event, Tony D'Angelo was quite good. The character is still over. It works. Carmelo Hayes, of course, is very good too. But this was mostly a showcase for Tony D'Angelo so that you could see that he's on that level, the main event level. And as usual, when WWE is doing something, they decide to go whole cloth with it, and they changed Tony D'Angelo's theme. I don't know why. It's not more gangster than it used to be. It's not as happy. It's a little bit more, why did I say happy? Upbeat, let's say. I don't know why they changed it, but they did. I don't hate it. I just don't like it. I don't like random changes for no reason. His character hasn't changed. If his character changed completely or something, all right, fine. But it hasn't changed that much. Matter of fact, it hasn't changed at all. It's just literally the same character. The Don of NXT. It's literally the same thing. The finish. Let's get into the finish. Trick Williams' theme plays. The crowd absolutely erupts. Security stands at the ready, turns towards the entrance, and Carmelo Hayes is distracted. He gets attacked from behind by Tony D'Angelo. Tony D'Angelo hits the forget about it, which is basically a version of the perfect plex that ends up with like a pinning position. And Tony D'Angelo wins the match. Again, fun match. After the match, Tony D'Angelo gets on the mic and apologizes for this little stunt he pulled. Basically telling Carmelo Hayes this was all a rib. That he's the one who had Trick Williams' theme song played. And then he says, as an apology, he's got a present for Carmelo Hayes. And it's Trick Williams. And Trick Williams gets in the ring. He starts kicking all kinds of ass. He even did some kind of crazy crescent kick on somebody. It was nuts, like a spinning wheel kick. I'm like, what is that? The building absolutely erupted. The people were standing. I don't know if they were throwing babies in the air, but they were very, very excited. Trick Williams is back, and I love this because it means that I was 100% correct in what I said before in terms of you're going to have, for Stand and Deliver, Tony D'Angelo versus Ilya Dragunov and Trick Williams and Carmelo Hayes in 2 separate matches. That's a really good deal because you're elevating 2 guys at once. The only problem with that is maybe Trick. It should be the guy who's more over than everybody and should probably be the champion. But okay, the revenge angle is more important for now. So let's go ahead and do that. We could save the championship thing for a little bit later. But Tony D'Angelo being the top contender, I love it. I can't say nothing bad about it. I want this match with Ilya Dragunov to be very good. And I want people to really respect that Tony D'Angelo is very good on this roster. Okay, Fallon Henley. She's talking to that Riley Osborne kid. And they're both talking about Thea Hale. And she's trying to tell Riley Osborne Thea Hale got some really bad advice. And she's not the girl that, you went on a date with. She's the girl that you actually liked. And Riley Osborne's kind of like, he didn't think that she liked him. Blah, 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 drama. And then Blair Davenport comes over with the heel being sensible and telling Fallon Henley to mind her own business. Which, mind your own business, Fallon Henley. Why you being a gossip? Why you rubbernecking? Mind your business. And in typical modern wrestling fashion, things cannot wait. So they had to have that match tonight. So Fallon Henley defeated Blair Davenport. I didn't like this. Blair Davenport should be winning matches. I don't know why she's just another girl in the mid-card. In any event, the loss was reasonable because Sol Ruka made her return. She did a cartwheel on the barricade. Just amazing balance. But she botched the DDT. It was supposed to be a cartwheel off the barricade into a DDT. She botched the last part by not really clutching the head of Blair Davenport. So Blair Davenport basically threw herself into the floor. And then Sol Ruka rolled her back into the ring where Fallon Henley hit a Shining Wizard to win the match. So Sol Ruka is back for revenge. I'm a big fan of Sol Ruka. Everybody knows that. She's hot. She's flexible. What more can you ask for from a female? All right, the second match on the show, NXT Tag Team Championship, Braun Breaker and Baron Corbin defeated Chase University. Baron Corbin is starting to loosen up. He's now becoming somewhat friendly with Braun Breaker, including dressing like him in the entrance. Oh boy, this match has some real length to it. People are still really into Chase University, and I can't complain. I'm not, the biggest super fan of it. I'm not a big fan of Harlem Bravado at all. That would be Andre Chase, but whatever. I mean, I can't complain. Braun Breaker and Baron Corbin win the match with the spear. Later, JC Jane is very disappointed in Chase University. Thea Hale is really amped up because she got into a fight with Kiana James and Izzy Dame earlier. That was in the middle of the Blair Davenport Fallon Henley match, if I remember correctly. No, it was in the middle of the Women's Tag Team Championship match where she was backstage fighting and scratching at Kiana James and Izzy Dame. So she came in here and she was very excited and bouncing about. She was still pretty upset, not just from fighting with Kiana James and them, but she had also gotten pretty upset about JC Jane, who basically called Chase University losers behind their back after they lost the tag team title match. She put up the big old L, which flipped off Thea Hale. She got super upset. But Thea Hale wants to tag team with JC Jane to fight Izzy Dame and Kiana James. And JC Jane says, I got things to do. Sorry. Can't do it. Can't help you. Can't help you out. I'm busy next week. Sorry to tell you. You got to find somebody else. And she just stood there incredulous, like, oh my goodness. Why on earth would you do that to that young lady? Anyway, this is fun. The Chase University stuff is honestly some of the most entertaining shit on WWE television. It finds new ways of staying fresh and interesting. Even though sometimes, characters are jerked back and forth and certain elements are dropped, like the Duke Hudson being, his heel turn seemed to have been aborted. Same thing with Thea Hale. Her heel turn seemed to have been aborted. And now the babyface turn for JC Jane has been aborted. And they just kind of just taking these characters in interesting ways, but they're staying true to them to a degree where part of JC Jane's character is that she doesn't really associate with losers. and she's a mean girl. She's always been that, and that's still there. So even though it looked like she was about to turn babyface, it's actually more natural for her to behave the way she's been behaving now. And Thea Hill, even though it looked like she was going to turn heel, it's more natural for her to be the fiery, high energy babyface that she was before she met JCJ. And it actually makes more sense. So they're staying true to the characters about trying to add certain elements to them. So I found the Chase University stuff to be some of the most entertaining stuff on the show. Tatum Paxley, however, is becoming more demented, and I don't know how many more crazy women we have to deal with on these rosters. Between WWE, TNA, and AEW, how many witches and warlocks and women with magic powers or whatever do we have to deal with? Tatum Paxley cut a promo saying that they're going to be more than friends after they win the tag team championships. That creeped out Lyra Valkyria, and she says, we're going to be the champions. So Lyra Valkyria is extremely cautious because Asuka is undefeated in NXT, and they're both Asuka and Kairi are former women's champions. But Tatum Paxley says she wants to be permanently intertwined with Lyra Valkyria forever in history by winning the tag team title. She willing to do anything to have that moment. And she says that something about looking into souls and torturing people, and it got dark for a second. I didn't quite understand why it got so dark, but whatever. Match 4, Women's Tag Team Championship match. The Kabuki Warriors versus Tatum Paxley and Ilya Dragunov. Tatum Paxley and Lyra Valkyria. The Kabuki Warriors win the match, obviously. The match was weird. It was very weird. And it was weird because it seemed like there was some spots in which you could see Tatum Paxley, who was probably the least experienced person in the match, working her way through things. But also, Kairi is so small that certain things just look awkward with her doing it. And then also there was a moment there where I thought Kairi had gotten injured again. So Lyra Valkyria did a springboard crossbody onto both members of the Kabuki Warriors. I think it was both members, but it doesn't matter. Her knee ended up jamming Kairi in the head, and Kairi was laying there on the mat for a little while. And I saw the referee go over to her, and I was like, "Oh boy, is it over?" But she ended up finishing the match, so I guess she was fine. But it looked nasty enough at first glance. Lyra Valkyria remains a good in-ring performer with no personality and no character whatsoever. I don't understand. She was basically Girl Sting for a little while there, where she basically made, sporadic appearances. She came in, she hit some good offense, and she won, and she left. And she barely talked. Then she just became every other girl in the locker room. And it's not been helpful for her career. The whole Black Feathers, the Valkyrie, Chooser of the Slain kind of gimmick was nice. I don't understand why they went away from that. But then again, Triple H, it's all vanilla now. All vanilla. Just different flavors of vanilla. The Kabuki Warriors win with the Insane elbow. Again, the match was very weird. Tatum Paxley, it's not all her fault, but, it's just easier to blame the one person who is the least experienced. But they did some really crazy character stuff in here, too. And Asuka can work with anybody. That's, Undertaker was right. Asuka can do it all, so she's excellent. After the match, however, because, Tatum Paxley was the one who got pinned, Lyra Valkyria was assaulted by Roxanne Perez from behind, cementing her heel turn. She then bent Lyra Valkyria's arm over the turnbuckle and stomped on it viciously, and Lyra Valkyria had to go to the ambulance. So Lyra Valkyria is out after Roxanne Perez stomped that arm. What a great spot. Really good spot here. I'd never seen that before. So I'm always good with people doing things that I've never seen before. That actually makes sense. So Roxanne Perez tried to break Lyra Valkyria's arm. No doubt will get herself a title match. But Lyra Valkyria only have one arm doing it. which is going to add some element of drama and intrigue, and also going to put Roxanne Perez in the crosshairs of Tatum Paxley, so that should be interesting too. I like this. All right. The molten hot ass that is Shawn Spears defeated Uriah Connors, who I'm told is Brogan Finley, the second son of Fit Finley. His other boy is a jabroni in Japan. This guy is woefully skinny and incredibly pale. He looks like little Sheamus. Like if Sheamus laid an egg in the middle of a corner, it looked like Brogan Finley would have come out of that egg. It's incredible. He has, why did you sign this guy? He has no body type whatsoever. I don't know. Maybe there's something more to it that I'm missing. And Uriah Connors, interesting. Interesting choice of name. Not interesting at all, actually. It's just weird. Shawn Spears wins. Ugh. I got to spit. I'm going to spit the name Shawn Spears out every time. Next, Shawn Spears, he cut a promo talking about man and mirrors and, holding the mirror up to humanity. And, what do you see is going to bother you. The truth is blah, 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 blah. Trying to be philosophical. People don't seem to care. And he seemed like he was forgetting parts of his promo. Then he says that Ridge Holland claims that he competes for his family, but he doesn't believe it, that everybody has dark thoughts, including himself. The difference is when he holds a mirror to his face, he's not ashamed. He says enough of this emotional stuff, basically trying to get Ridge Holland to embrace the hate. That's what this storyline is. They brought Shawn Spears in here to do a remix of the John Cena Kane 2012 Embrace the Hate storyline. That's what they did. So Ridge Holland marches down to the ring, and the crowd is actually booing Ridge Holland. They should boo all of this. Look, it's not Ridge Holland's fault, but this sucks. Shawn Spears is involved with it, so it's not good. And Ridge Holland immediately starts beating up on Shawn Spears, and Shawn Spears is saying, come on, do it, embrace it, do it. Trying to get him to hit him with a chair. All this stuff. I'm just like, oh my God. They brought this fool back to rip off a Kane gimmick. Why? This is painful, cuh. Shawn Spears sucks, cuh. They're going to have a match next week. Oh my God. 2 weeks in a row of this asshole. My goodness. Anyway, let's move on. Josh Briggs doesn't want Brooks Jensen to fight Obafemi. He doesn't think it's a good idea. Brooks Jensen says, you told me to get some balls. This is what me getting some balls is going to do. I'm going to bust him up. Briggs is like, okay, well, wish you luck, pal. Go do your thing. As young Jensen walks off, Dijak walks up and says that Briggs calls Jensen his brother, but he knows that Jensen is a dead man walking, fighting Obafemi. Why does Dijak care? I don't know. But, everybody is interconnected in NXT, so I guess it matters. It looks like Josh Briggs is going to be the next Dijak victim. I don't think I'm going to be very happy about that. I don't think I'm going to be very happy about that. All right, so Gigi Dolan, she's frustrated. She wants to fight Ariana Grace, who will not sign a contract to have a match. Let's pause right here. How many times have people said that they didn't want to fight anybody, and the general managers or whomever made them fight? But in this instance, Ava Raine is like, there's nothing I can do. Ariana don't want to fight. She said if I forced her, she'd just lay down in the ring. You don't want that. Like, look, it's up to her. If she wants to just get punched in the face, she can. You could just make the match. Anyway, Ariana Grace says she doesn't want to fight for a living. And Gigi Dolan is frustrated. She wanted Ariana Grace to fight her. So Gigi says that she deserves to get her ass kicked. And Ariana Grace said that there is never a necessity for such vulgarity or something to that effect. And then says she will have a match with her. But if she wins, she wants to make Gigi Dolan a proper lady, in which she will have to learn to live her life without violence and no vulgar language. Gigi Dolan did not care and just said, sure, I'll fight you. It doesn't matter. And I think that we should have dragged this out. Ariana Grace being a pacifist is more interesting than her immediately caving and saying, okay, I'll give you your match on this condition. How about you drag this thing out where Ariana Grace just refuses to have this match? You could have done this for a couple of weeks. I don't see how, even if this turned into some vignettes or stuff, I don't see how it could be more interesting than Ariana Grace being super annoying, but never having any matches because she refuses to wrestle. You could even do an almost Eva Marie type of gimmick where she has an excuse pretty much every other week why she can't have a match. And I love that. That was so great that they did that with Eva Marie. That was one of the best gimmicks. Like, legit. I legit had fun with the big, boisterous Eva Marie entrance, and then it would be Eva Marie is stuck in traffic or something like that. That was amazing. It was amazing. She should have been a champion. That would have been legit, you know? But Ariana Grace is going to wrestle Gigi Dolan. Okay, fine. It ought to be fun at least. Noam Dar, he's backstage in a catatonic state, which usually happens after he loses the Heritage Cup. Oro Mensah and Lash Legend was ready to give up on him before he popped back to himself and said it's on time for bigger and better things. So I'm guessing he's no longer chasing the Heritage Cup, which is good. Lexis King made a video in which was taunting Robert Stone. Robert Stone then looks to Von Wagner, who remains like something drawn by Jack Kirby, and says that he wants to fight Lexis King alone. Even though Von Wagner is willing to fight on his behalf, he says, nah, I must do this myself. And so he's going to go pick a fight with Lexis King. That ought to be fun. Now to the thing that everybody was going to probably be talking about at the end of this show. Charlie Dempsey. He's got the Heritage Cup, says that it had great interest for him up to this point. It's in line with his vision of the pure arts of pro wrestling. But this cup is not his alone. And then we get a passed around promo from Gulak and the other guy. That one dude, Miles Bourne, he doesn't talk because he's deaf, apparently. Anyway, Damon Kemp and Drew Gulak, they tell us that any member of No Quarter Catch Crew can defend the Heritage Cup. And they're going to be in the NXT Tag Team Championship Tournament. For starters, what Tag Team Championship Tournament? What do we need that for? And why is 4 people defending that one championship? I don't like it. I hate that. Freebird rule for a tag team title, okay, fine. But any member of a 4-man stable can wrestle for the Heritage Cup. So that means somebody other than Dempsey who won it can lose it. That's dumb. I hate that. So as they're talking about stuff, William Regal's theme song starts to play. The building erupts. They start chanting, "He's your father" at Charlie Dempsey. William Regal gets into the ring and says that the Heritage Cup means the world to him because it represents Europe, the European scene that he came from, and it's a tribute to all of the people who came before him. And he looks directly at Charlie Dempsey and says, "Defend it with the honor and integrity that it deserves." To which Charlie Dempsey took the microphone and says he's going to defend it better than Regal ever could. And everybody was like, okie dokie. We see where this is going. All right. All right. So I guess Charlie Dempsey is going to be Lexis King, except for his dad is still alive, where we're going to get a big explanation about why he's choosing not to go by the name Regal and all this kind of stuff. But they're not running away from the fact that Charlie Dempsey is William Regal's son. In fact, Vic Joseph mentioned it on commentary. So we're not running away from it. It was an opportunity for Charlie Dempsey to make a name for himself before Regal was introduced into the story. Similar to Braun Breaker, where they didn't really mention that he was Rick Steiner's son until he was already the NXT champion. So they wanted to give them an opportunity to make a name for themselves first, and then you interject the family. So Regal working in NXT, and Dempsey being now a champion there. It has a lot of potential. There's a lot of different ways you can go with this. Typically with WWE, they try not to go the Nepo baby route, which is, even though this person is the son, daughter, or whatever of a legend, they kind of try to avoid it. They try to avoid it as much as possible so that the character of the young kid does not feel the need to be under the pressure of having to live up to the family name and all this sort of stuff. Yes, they let Richie Steamboat keep his name. I know Randy Orton didn't have to go by Randy the Ramshacker or some crap like that. I get it. But having the space to make your own name and make your own persona and be yourself and not be shackled by who your parents are can be a great benefit, But it could also be a great benefit for everybody to know. And here it seems like that's where they're going with Charlie Dempsey. They're going to make sure everybody knows. And they're going to have, William Regal be the observant father who's going to be watching his son and probably trying to keep him in this style, the European wrestling style. And it's actually very good for the Heritage Cup. That's why I hate this idea that either one of these guys are going to be defending the belt. It sucks. Well, the cup. It sucks. It should always be Dempsey. Always. And it should be a thing where maybe William Regal's trying to get Charlie Dempsey out of this group, get him on his own. He doesn't need to be with them or something. That could be fun. That could be interesting. I'm very interested in what they're going to do here. So that's NXT. That's the entire show. It was very good, with the exception of all of that steam and trash that's got anything to do with Shawn Spears. But we can push that in the bin. The rest of the show was pretty solid. Now, a couple of minutes ago, actually, I was talking about the idea that maybe certain people are never going to leave NXT. And one of those people, a couple of those people that was mentioned was like Dijak, Joe Gacy, somebody like Gigi Dolan. Like, are they ever going to leave? Are they ever going to get called up? And I'm not ever in a rush to call people up. And I also separate somebody like Dijak, who is much like Baron Corbin, who's, stepped down to NXT and has been hanging around for a while. I don't see him the same as I see like Gigi Dolan, who's never been on Raw or SmackDown. I don't see him as the same as Joe Gacy, who has never been on Raw or SmackDown. There are some people who are, and Gigi Dolan's not even that old. I think she's barely 30. And so a lot of those people are not that old. Sure, she has a little bit more experience. Gacy has a lot of experience. He's almost 40, I think. So maybe some of those guys do need to leave NXT, but I don't feel like they've overstayed their welcome. At least I don't think Gigi Dolan has. Some of the other people like JC Jane, who's been in NXT for a long time, I think she does very good there. And I think that she's in a good role. There should be no rush to leave right now. She's doing something interesting with Chase University. Now, there's people who are in NXT who I say, why the hell are they still here? But a lot of those people are people I'm trying to push into unemployment, So, but I don't think Andre Chase is ever going to go to Raw or SmackDown, or at least not long term. I don't think Chase University is a gimmick that's going to work on the main roster. Even though it's super over in NXT, I don't think it'll work in the main roster. Obafemi we're just counting our days here for him and Trick Williams and Carmelo. Those guys are going to be gone by the end of the year. But there are some other people who will probably still be here next year, and Roxanne Perez is probably one of those too. She's very young. She's like 23 or something like that, man. There's no rush for her. And Thea Hale is another one. There's just no rush. There's no need to rush them. But others, I just don't see how they can make a difference on the main roster because they're not making much of a difference in NXT. But I don't think that there's any lifers. I do think that there probably will be people who are going to get cut. And they've been in NXT for a while and they're not going to get brought up. Oh well. Like, share, subscribe. I'll talk to you guys later.